The night my younger sister called me crying, I thought she needed her big brother. She didn't. She needed someone to take the blame for a crime she had committed. At 11:47 on a rainy Tuesday night, my sister Emily stood outside my apartment with tears running down her face. Her expensive coat was soaked. Her hands were shaking. And behind her was our father, our mother, and the family attorney. My father didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't ask why they were there. He looked straight at me and said, "Daniel, you have to help your sister." I looked at Emily. "What happened?" She lowered her eyes. "I hit someone." The room went silent. My mother grabbed my arm. "Emily made a terrible mistake." My father stepped closer. "She was driving your car." I stared at him. "My car?" Emily nodded. Then my father said the sentence I will never forget. "The police are looking for the vehicle, Daniel. We need you to tell them you were driving." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because they were asking me to destroy my life to protect the daughter they had spent 30 years treating like she could do no wrong. What they didn't know is that I had spent the previous 11 years studying the law. What they didn't know is that I had recently been appointed to the bench. And what they definitely didn't know was that the case Emily was trying to escape was about to enter my courtroom. My family thought I was still the quiet son they could pressure into fixing their problems. They were about to discover that the person they were asking to lie was the judge who would have to decide what happened next. Chapter 1, The Family Favorite. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 39 years old. And for most of my life, I was the invisible child in my own family. My younger sister Emily was everything my parents wanted. She was beautiful, confident, popular. She had a successful marketing career, a large social media following, and the kind of personality that made people turn toward her when she entered a room. My father called her the future of the family. My mother called her our little star. When Emily graduated from college, my parents rented a ballroom. When I graduated from law school, my father sent me a text message. "Congratulations. Proud of you." 3 words. That was it. I learned early not to expect much. So I stopped telling them about my achievements. I stopped explaining my work. I stopped trying to make them understand who I was becoming. And eventually, they decided that my silence meant I had nothing to say. They were wrong. I simply realized that some people only listen when they need something. And my family always needed something. Money, advice, favors, connections, excuses. Whenever Emily made a mistake, I was expected to understand. When she damaged my father's car, I was told not to make a big deal about it. When she missed an important family event, I was told she was busy. When she borrowed money and forgot to return it, my mother said, "Family isn't supposed to keep score." But when I said no, suddenly I was selfish, cold, distant, ungrateful. So when Emily appeared at my door that rainy Tuesday night, I already knew what was coming. Someone needed me to fix something. I just didn't know how dangerous it would become. Chapter 2, The Night Everything Changed. Emily stepped inside. My father closed the door behind her. My mother sat on the couch and immediately began crying. I looked from one face to another. "What happened?" My father answered, "Emily was driving home tonight." "From where?" He hesitated. "A restaurant." Emily interrupted. "It wasn't a big deal." I looked at her. "If it wasn't a big deal, why are all of you here?" Nobody answered. Then my mother whispered, "There was an accident." My stomach tightened. "Is anyone hurt?" Emily started crying again. My father said, "Someone stepped into the road." "Did Emily call an ambulance?" Silence. I looked directly at my sister. "Emily?" she whispered. I panicked. "Did you stop?" She looked at the floor. My father answered for her. "She drove away." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You left someone injured?" "It happened so fast," Emily said. "Did you call the police?" "No." "Why?" Her voice became smaller. "Because I was scared." I took a breath. "Then you need a lawyer." My father looked at me. "That's why we're here." "No," I said. "You're here because you want something from me." My father didn't deny it. He walked toward me. "The car was registered in your name." I stared at him. "Emily borrowed it?" He nodded. And the police have the license plate. My mother stood up. Daniel, please. I already knew what they wanted. No. My father frowned. You haven't even heard the plan. I don't need to. He lowered his voice. You were home tonight. I stared at him. Exactly. You can tell the police you were driving. I felt something inside me go completely still. My own father was asking me to confess to a crime I didn't commit. For my sister. My mother grabbed my hand. Daniel, please. One mistake could destroy Emily's career. I looked at her. And lying could destroy mine. My father sighed. You don't have the public profile Emily has. There it was. The truth. My life mattered less to them. Chapter 3: The Secret I Never Told Them. My father continued. Emily has a future. I almost smiled. And I don't. He shook his head. That's not what I said. But it was exactly what he meant. They had spent years believing I was simply the quiet brother who worked somewhere in government. They had never bothered to ask what I actually did. For 11 years, I had worked in the legal system. I had prosecuted cases, reviewed evidence, questioned witnesses. And eventually, after years of preparation, I had been appointed as a judge in the state district court. Only 3 weeks earlier, I had taken my oath. I had told my parents about the appointment. My mother had responded. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Then she immediately changed the subject to Emily's upcoming promotion. My father had never asked where I would be sitting, what cases I would hear, what responsibilities I would have. They didn't know. And tonight, I decided not to tell them. Not yet. Because I wanted to see how far they were willing to go. My father placed a folder on the table. Everything is already prepared. I opened it. Inside was a statement. My name was at the top. According to the statement, I had borrowed my own vehicle. I had been driving. I had been distracted. I had panicked. I had left the scene. And Emily? She wasn't mentioned. I looked at my father. You wrote this? He didn't answer. My mother whispered. Your father is trying to protect the family. I closed the folder. No. He's trying to choose which family member is disposable. Emily suddenly shouted. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You have no idea what's at stake for me. I looked at her. And you have no idea what's at stake for the person you hit. That sentence changed the room. Nobody spoke. At 1:15 in the morning, my father called the family attorney. His name was Richard Mason. He arrived 20 minutes later. He looked at me and smiled. Daniel, your family tells me you're being reasonable. I said. They're asking me to confess to a crime. His smile disappeared. Richard sat down. Let's not use dramatic language. It's not dramatic. It's a false confession. He leaned forward. The injured person survived. I stared at him. That makes it better? No. He sighed. But it changes the legal exposure. I couldn't believe it. My family wasn't thinking about the victim. They were thinking about consequences. Richard opened another folder. The police haven't identified the driver. I corrected him. They have the vehicle. Yes. And cameras. We don't know. I looked at Emily. She avoided my eyes. Then my phone vibrated. A notification appeared. My vehicle's security system had automatically uploaded footage after detecting a collision. I read the message twice. Collision detected. Video preserved. Location recorded. Audio captured. I looked at Emily. She didn't know. My father didn't know. The attorney didn't know. For the first time that night, I felt completely calm. Because I realized something. I didn't need to prove my innocence. They were already proving their guilt. Chapter 5: The Recording. I didn't tell them about the footage. Instead, I listened. My father began constructing the story. Daniel was upset. My mother nodded. Yes. He had been under stress. Emily added. He took the car around midnight. Richard wrote it down. I said nothing. Then Emily made the mistake that changed everything. She said. The road was empty. I looked at her. You said you couldn't see. She froze. My father interrupted. That's enough. No, I said. It's not. Emily looked at me. Why are you doing this? I'm not doing anything. She lowered her voice. You always think you're better than me. I almost laughed. I've never thought that. You've always judged me. Because I was always cleaning up your mistakes. Her face changed. You enjoyed being needed. That hurt. Because part of it was true. For years, I had confused helping my family with being loved by them. Every time I rescued Emily, I believed I was protecting our relationship. But I wasn't. I was teaching her that my boundaries didn't matter. My father stood. Enough. Then he looked directly at me. Tomorrow morning, you will report yourself as the driver. I shook my head. No. He became angry. Don't make me force you. I looked at him. You can't. He smiled. You don't know what I'm capable of. I quietly answered. I know exactly what you're capable of. And I knew something else. By morning, the truth would be impossible to hide. At 7:30 the next morning, my family arrived at my house again. My father had brought documents. My mother had brought coffee. Emily had brought an attorney. They were prepared to finish what they started. My father placed the confession on the table. Sign it. I looked at the paper. Then I stood. Before we continue, there's something you should know. My father crossed his arms. What? I walked into my office. Behind my desk was a framed document. My official judicial commission. Beside it was my oath of office. I carried both into the living room. I placed them on the table. Nobody moved. My mother stared at the seal. Emily looked confused. My father picked up the document. His face changed. What is this? I answered calmly. My commission. He looked at me. Commission for what? I said. I'm Judge Daniel Carter. Silence. Absolute silence. Emily's mouth opened slightly. My mother sat down. My father stared at me as though I had become a stranger. You never told us. I did. When? 3 weeks ago. He shook his head. You said you had a new position. I told you I had been appointed. He looked at my mother. She couldn't answer. Emily whispered. You're a judge. Yes. Richard, the attorney, slowly stood. Which court? I told him. His face went pale. He immediately understood something the rest of them didn't. This case could eventually reach my jurisdiction. My father looked at me. Then you can help Emily. I shook my head. No. Why not? Because judges don't erase crimes. He stared at me. But you can influence the system. No. You have connections. I have responsibilities. Emily stepped forward. So you're going to destroy your own sister? I looked directly at her. No. I am refusing to destroy myself for your choices. The police arrived later that morning. They had already obtained traffic camera footage. They had already identified the vehicle. And they had already found a witness. But the most damaging evidence came from the car. The security system had recorded everything. The collision. Emily's voice. The passenger's voice. Her phone conversation with my father. And the moment she said, if I stay here, my career is over. Then my father's voice answered. Drive to Daniel's apartment. The car is registered to him. My mother asked, what if he refuses? My father replied, then we make him look guilty. I heard that recording later. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt sick. Because these weren't strangers. These were my parents. The people who had taught me as a child that honesty mattered. And now they were willing to destroy their own son to protect their daughter. The detectives interviewed Emily. At first, she denied everything. Then they played the recording. Her story collapsed. She admitted she had been driving. She admitted she left the scene. She admitted my father told her to blame me. And she admitted she had called the police and suggested that I might have been driving. But there was one thing she still refused to admit. Why? Why did she choose me? The detective asked her. Emily finally said. Because nobody in my family would believe he was important enough to have something worth protecting. Chapter 8. The family falls apart. My father was furious. He blamed me. He said I had humiliated the family. My mother said I should forgive Emily. Emily said she had been scared. Everyone had an explanation. Nobody wanted responsibility. My father came to my chambers one evening. He stood outside the door. I raised you. I looked at him. And I loved you. Then help your sister. I already helped her. How? By refusing to lie. He shook his head. You could have destroyed the evidence. I stared at him. That's exactly why you never understood me. He frowned. What does that mean? You thought my position was power. I paused. It isn't. What is it? Responsibility. He looked away. For the first time in my life, my father had no argument. He finally said, "She is your sister." I answered, "That doesn't make her innocent." Emily eventually entered a plea agreement. She admitted leaving the scene and providing false information. She lost her job. Her professional reputation collapsed. The company she worked for terminated her contract. The public career she had dreamed about ended. My father also faced consequences because investigators found evidence that he had encouraged false statements. My mother wasn't charged, but several organizations she worked with asked her to resign. And me? I went through an ethics review. Not because I had done anything wrong, but because I was connected to the people involved. I cooperated fully. I recused myself whenever necessary. I provided every message, every document, every piece of evidence. Eventually, the review concluded that I had acted properly. But the experience changed me, because I finally understood something. I had spent years trying to earn love from people who believed love meant obedience. Whenever they needed something, I gave. Whenever they crossed a boundary, I forgave. Whenever Emily made a mistake, I protected her. And every time I did it, I thought I was being a good brother. I wasn't. I was making it easier for them to use me. 6 months later, Emily wrote me a letter. She didn't ask me to fix anything. She didn't ask me to help her. She simply wrote, "I thought you were jealous of me." I kept reading. "I thought you hated the attention I received." Then came the sentence that surprised me. "I realize now that I was angry because you built a life I couldn't control." She admitted that when she discovered I was a judge, she wasn't proud. She was afraid. Because she realized I no longer needed the family's approval. And that meant they couldn't control me with guilt. She apologized. But I didn't immediately forgive her. Not because I wanted revenge. Because forgiveness shouldn't become another escape from accountability. My father also sent me a message. He wrote, "Families make mistakes." I replied with one sentence. Families can make mistakes. They cannot demand that one member destroy himself to hide another member's choices. He never responded. My mother eventually called. She cried. She said she wanted the family to heal. I told her, healing doesn't mean pretending it never happened. She asked, "Then what does it mean?" I said, "It means accepting the truth without asking the victim to carry the blame." There was a long silence. Then she said, "I don't know how to do that." I answered, "People sometimes assume that revenge means making the person who hurt you suffer. I don't believe that anymore. My family expected me to fight. They expected anger. They expected me to use my position against Emily. I did none of those things. I simply stepped aside. I let the evidence speak. I let investigators do their jobs. I let the courts follow the law. And I refused to lie. That was my revenge. Not destroying my sister. Not humiliating my parents. Not using my position to punish anyone. My revenge was becoming the person they had always underestimated. And then refusing to become like them. For years, I thought being strong meant protecting my family at any cost. Now I understand that strength sometimes means saying no. Even when saying no makes people angry. Even when they call you selfish. Even when they say you have changed. Sometimes you haven't changed. Sometimes you have simply stopped allowing people to use your love against you. A year after everything happened, I returned to my courtroom after a long day. I sat alone for a few minutes. On the wall behind me was my judicial commission. The same document that had shocked my family. I thought about that night. My father standing in my apartment. My mother crying. Emily asking me to take the blame. And the folder containing a confession I never signed. They had believed I was the easiest person to sacrifice. They were wrong. Not because I was powerful. Not because I was a judge. Not because I had money or influence. They were wrong because they had mistaken my silence for weakness. And that was the biggest mistake they ever made. I didn't need to threaten anyone. I didn't need to expose anyone publicly. I didn't need to destroy them. I simply stopped protecting them from the consequences of their own choices. Sometimes the quietest revenge is the most powerful. You don't scream. You don't fight. You don't chase them. You simply step aside and let the truth reach them. Because when someone has built their entire life on the belief that you will always protect them, the most shocking thing you can do is finally stop. And that is exactly what I did. My family thought they were sacrificing an insignificant son to save their favorite daughter. They never realized that the man they were trying to frame was the judge who had spent his entire career learning one simple lesson. Truth does not need revenge. It only needs someone brave enough to stop hiding it. So if you were in Daniel's position, what would you have done? Would you protect your family, protect yourself, or protect the truth? Tell me in the comments. And if this story reminded you that silence can sometimes be stronger than revenge, subscribe to Silent Revenge Stories for more stories about betrayal, hidden truths, family secrets,